I rarely go to gallery talks, artist gallery talks, because they're so damn boring. So, if anybody leaves in the middle of this thing, feel good about it. I would do the same thing. Mary, the sculpture department sponsors numbers of visiting artist talks, and one time in the student center, I always sit up, way up in the upper left-hand corner. And one time, Mary sat in front of me, and before the lecture we chatted, and then sometime during the lecture, I left, because I go up in the back corner because there's an exit door back there. And so when I saw Mary the next time, she said, what happened to you? I said, you know, if a lecture's not entertaining, if there's no ideas I can steal, I'm out of there. So if there's nothing you can steal, I'll see you later. I made notes here, but let me tell you about the title for the show. And like so many other things, it's something I was going to say borrowed, but I stole it. You know, I've heard many lectures by Bucky Fuller, and one time, I only heard him say this once, and he said, I'm not giving a lecture, I'm taking inventory of my thoughts because I don't know what I know. And I thought, oh, this is a smart thing. So the title for the show comes right out of Bucky. I wish I could take credit for it. I can't. Okay. This past week, I went to see my dentist. And so we got on to talking about public speaking. And see, he said he had 3 rules for public speaking. Rule 1, stand up straight. 2, speak clearly. 3, sit down early. I thought, this is good advice, so, okay. Something else, sometime during the 80s, there was a woman who had graduated in the painting department, came back to VCU, gave a talk, and she used the word career. And career in art, I had never heard the word before. And I thought, this was kind of amazing. But over the years, I've thought about it. One is, I've always had a very good job here at universities. And then now, there's Virginia, a nice conservative state. It's good if you retire in a conservative state, because they have good retirement packages. So I'm from Illinois. I'm glad I'm not retired from Illinois, though. So, but I realized I've always had an income, but you know, not everybody could have that kind of income. And I thought, well, of course you think about a career, but you know, the other problem is, why art is a career? Because they're handmade, you do one at a time. This doesn't make any sense. Oh, except it makes sense for printmakers, because you can sell lots of those things. But I would make stuff that you could sell a lot of. If you go into business, well, be a good business person. Okay, back to the notes here. Okay. Next little thing I want to talk about, and for me it's a very important thing, the idea of language in art. And there's numbers of words that we generally use that we use incorrectly, like the word beauty. People talk about beauty. What they really mean is pretty. They mean lovely, not beauty. Beauty is something very different. I could say, you know, because they assume it's a visual thing. Part of it is visual, but I could say, that's a beautiful thought. So beauty doesn't have to be a visual thing. It could be a much more complicated thing. The same thing happens with the word form. People talk about the form. You know, so I surveyed a bunch of people once, and I said, when I say form, what do you think I mean? And they say a three-dimensional shape. You know, that's like a form in a shoe form or something of that sort. But form, again, is a much more complicated thing. It's Greek, and and it was also it was essentially a Greek word. But I could also say, well, what form is your life taking? That's a much more complicated phenomena. It's about a much broader thing, which I don't know the extent of. Okay, but then we use, let's say you take somebody to a show, a gallery, and you are taking them around, somebody who doesn't know much about art. You take them around and you talk about the pieces in the show. The words that you use to describe the work, actually, what they do is describe your values. So if you talk about color, about the color of it, that means that's a value you put on it. I was going to say something else, I forgot. 1 second, it's coming back. Let me see what words I got here. Okay. You know, years ago, the fellow who was in a photography department asked me to teach a course for some graduate photographers. And I said, okay. What he thought I was to teach a sculpture course, and I thought I was to teach a photography course. So I thought, well, this is great. I'm really looking forward to it. So I took my regular schedule, I just added this course. And so we sat around Hardee's and we drank coffee all the time and talked, and they would bring things in. And although my coffee was fortified, so it's too boring if it's not fortified. But one thing I realized, this was all the graduate students in photography, they used the word organization, composition. And I said, so I realized what was happening. It was a time, probably in the 80s, it was a time when photography was a little horny and they wanted to be considered an art. So, and then formalism was kind of popular, so they got into the formalist lingo, and they were going to, so by making the composition good, we'll talk about that in a moment, that it's going to be good art. And I thought, this is surprising. If I'm thinking about anything, painting, sculpture, photography, anything, all I think about is power. I want it to be powerful. I don't care if it looks like crap, I want it powerful. You know. Okay, we talked about composition. Let me tell you what I think it means. Good composition means I like it. Bad composition means I don't like it. So outside of that, what's wrong? Okay, I told my friend Jim here I was to say only one nasty thing about crafts. Okay. You know? I'm ready. Yeah. You know, the thing about crafts is that all the artists I know have to be great craftsmen. They have to be terrific craftsmen. In fact, they're such good craftsmen that they make the craft disappear. It's because there's something else you want people to look at. Why make them look at the craft of it? But people in the crafts department, they want to show off. Or dancers, you know, they get in and they get into some pose, even when they're not, somebody else is on the stage, they're in the corner taking a pose. I mean, sit down and take a load off when they're done. Do something. But why show off the craft unless that's what it's about? And if it's not about that, make it disappear. You know, the analogy I've used before, it's like the temperature in this room. The very best temperature is when you don't notice it. If it's too warm, too cool, it's uncomfortable. But when you don't notice it, it's invisible. And I think the craft in painting, sculpture, all of it should be as invisible. Notes, okay. Forget. We finished page 1. Oh, part of page 2. Yeah. You know, we talked about power before, and I don't know about, I don't go to many art shows. Oh, my daughter, for 7 years, lived in Austin, Texas, and they had their Style magazine, the free thing. So you look to see the shows, but they were smarter. They had all the shows in a block format on one page, and all the exhibits that had free wine, they had a gray background on. So you look at the ones with the gray background. Very, very easy. This was not a problem. Hey, tell the people over there about that. But I don't go to many shows because I said before, they're just too boring. And, I think, John Lahr, Bert Lahr's son, Bert Lahr, who was the lion and what? Wizard of Oz, yeah. I would say Alice in Wonderland. Wizard of Oz. But his son was a theater critic for the New Yorker for many years, and he wrote some books. He's no longer the theater critic, but one of the books he wrote, now out of print, it's called Astonish Me. And in the book, what he says is that every time I go to the theater, I expect to be astonished. Now why? Here we all go to shows around Richmond, New York, all over, but we settle for, we're easily satisfied. We ought to demand to be astonished when we go to see a show. If you're not astonished, and there's no free wine, what's the point? What's the point of going to these damn things? So, people want to make stuff good. You need a job to do. And so many of the shows I see, the people that are making the art, they want to do it all for you. They say, here, I want to give you the whole thing. You have no job to do. You're sitting there like a dope, What you got to do is you got to work. And you got to come away and you've got to work to make the thing whole. You've got to learn something from the show. At 19th century, everybody I know thinks that Cézanne was probably the greatest painter, including me. But if people who bought Cézanne's paintings, they bought them to live with for a lifetime. And these paintings reveal themselves slowly. There's things you discover about them all the time, and they're pretty amazing. Somebody just told me something recently I didn't know, but that these paintings were done before copyright laws. So Cézanne would put things in his painting that people couldn't duplicate. They were like little visual copyrights within the paintings. There's an article in the Times talked about him telling jokes in the paintings. Once I read the article, and of course I read everything that the New York Times says, so I look for the jokes, and oddly enough, I'm able to find them. Oh, that reminds me, there's another quote, and this is, you only find what you expect to see, and that is Angela Lansbury in Murder, She Wrote. But that's it. When you go to a gallery, you have certain expectations, and it's very difficult to see things that you're not expecting to see. So, back to the notes, okay? Oh, yeah, another one of my favorite quotes too, another great writer, Italo Calvino, and one of the things he said, the viewer will not be surprised by what he reads, or he probably meant they, but what he reads, if the writer's not surprised by what he writes. And I think that's when one if you know what you're going to do, how do you surprise yourself? So what you have to do is you set out to try to find something out. And you don't know till the very end if it's a piece of crap or it's worthwhile keeping. I know personally, an hour before I finish it, I have no idea what it's going to be. Then I finish it, and if I like it right away, that liking lasts about 2 days. Dumpster. If it's bad, and what bad means is that, dumpster. But the other ones, I'll keep sitting in my studio for 2 or 3 weeks. And if at the end of 2 or 3 weeks, if I'm not tired of it yet, that's okay, because I just don't know it yet. If I were, I used to teach at VCU, and if I were teaching today, I would do it very differently. In my classes, 3 kinds of work. Bad, which means poor craft, full of cliches. Good means everything's in the right place. Then the third one, what the hell is that? The only one of any value at all. What the hell is that? And I think those are things to be celebrated. Unfortunately, in art school, we don't celebrate them enough, not nearly enough. I'd like to, okay. Okay. I don't know much about the work. And Ashley here, you have questions? Ask Ashley. I know what happens before I begin the work. And one of the better analogies is a prize fighter. Prize fighter works out, is in good shape, runs, waits, hires a sparring partner that's has a similar style to the person he's going to fight. But if the fighter gets in the ring for the fight, he thinks for one instant, they knock him out. So what you do is you get in the ring, you don't think, because the fighter has prepared for a long time to do this without thinking. And all of us who make art, should do the same thing. That is, we read, talk to people, look at exhibitions, but when we get in the studio, you don't try not to think in the studio. It just gets in your way. Work, you don't want smart work. You want powerful work. Smart that's another kind of construction. I could say, ooh, that person is smart. But the work has no power. You want the work to have power. And, another thing, in this show there are some kinetic things and some audio things, and the reason that they're here is at a certain point, I I was very envious of literature and music especially because they had the component of time. And the visual arts, sculpture, painting, didn't have time. There was a way to put time in. And I'm looking at that one there. You see the faces that are stacked on one on another. Well, one of the things is the one that's furthest back is done first, and the one that's closest to you is done last. They were done over a period of time. But for me, I wanted something somewhat different than that, so that all the kinetics, all the audio, they're there to give a piece time, to bring that component into the sculpture. Okay. Oh, and my influences don't really come from the visual. I'm sure they do. I say they don't come from visual arts. It's hard not to because we see it all the time. But so many of the influences come from literature and music. And one, I forgot the name of the book. I had to ask my friend Mary the name of the book because I forgot it. It's the last book that Nabokov wrote in Russian. The Gift. I got it written down, Mary. The Gift. And in it, he did an incredibly brilliant thing. There's all these wonderful characters, a writer, a critic, and everything. But in the middle of the book, there's a biography of a Russian admiral written by one of the characters in the book, and of course written by Nabokov. And another character there criticized it. I thought, gee, this is pretty interesting, being able to criticize a work within the body of the work. And I thought, I like the idea. And of course, it took me a number of years, and there's a piece that's not in the show, but it's in the catalog, where I was able to find, with audio, was able to criticize the work within the body of the work. So the criticism's there. And if you read the criticism, in fact, this was a German couple, and I was in Germany, and I recorded Ingo, the fellow, and I just used an edited version of some of his emails. And I said, I knew I wanted his wife, Annette, to be part of it, and I didn't know till I got back to the States what I wanted her to say. Then I wrote the criticism of the work. I emailed it to her, and she said she wouldn't have those stupid things come out of her mouth. So, got it done anyway. But if you get a chance to read that criticism, it is really my fears. These are all truthful things, the fears I had about the work, and I wrote it for her to say, and she wouldn't say them. Back to the notes. Oh, yeah, something else. We get ideas at all different times, but the ones I trust the most, I never question, are the ideas I get when in that early morning when I'm half asleep and half awake. And I get up a little before 5, turn the news on at 5, and I lie there for an hour listening to the news, dozing. And one morning, I'm in bed, and I'm thinking about my grandmother's attic. And I picture myself going up to my grandmother's attic, and I see boxes around, and I start opening boxes, and I start picking things out of boxes, putting them around, just things I liked. I looked, I said, that's exactly what I want my sculptures to look like. Well, the thing is, of course, my grandmother never had an attic. This was all a thing but it made sense to me. And I start thinking about other things that are similar in nature. The burlesque show. You have a series of performances. You've got music. You've got a magician. You've got all different kinds of things all put together within this one format. The Cirque du Soleil, individual events. You have amusement parks, all these individual events. They're very different events, but they're within the realm that holds these things together. I thought, this is what I want my sculptures to look like. And the one piece that's in the show is one on the first floor in the second room. They have a lot of large parts put together that comes right out of my thinking about my grandmother's attic. Okay, page 3. Okay.
How many more pages?
Yeah, I told Ashley there'll be a Jesse Ventura quote will end the thing. So when you hear Jesse Ventura, you know it's come to an end. Yeah, I said before, the work, there's nothing here that I did that I knew about beforehand. For me, the work is to discover something. And to this day, I work every day. And the reason I work, not because I like making objects, but is that it just keeps this thing working. This is working all the time. My ego is in pretty good shape, and I don't need somebody patting me on the back and telling me good job. That's not at all. In fact, this show, which I'm incredibly happy to have Ashley do this, but Ashley and I were old friends. We would meet every number of months, and so she has seen the development of this whole work. And one day she asked me, would I like to have a show at the Anderson Gallery? I thought, this is terrific. And of course I would. But I just don't go out and try to get shows because it's not why I make art at all. I make it art for a very different reason. And like I take a yoga class. I do once a week. And I tell people in the yoga class, I'm not doing this to get any better. I'm doing it to get worse more slowly. But the same thing with this, You work on it, not for it to be smarter, but you want it to degenerate a little more slowly. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to read you this. This number of months ago, in the New York Review of Books, there was a review of a recent book by Siri Husfeld, and the reviewer referred to Randall Jarrell, referring to saying that even the best has something wrong with it, but that whatever makes the fiction wrong, to disfigure it, is also the very thing that makes the work what it is. It gives it its distinctive shape and feel. Without the wrong yet fruitful idea, the initial concept Henry James called donné, the book cannot come into existence. So the point is, you're not doing it to get it right. Getting it right, what's the point of getting it right? You got to work on something that, the people who make art know this, that none of us are very smart, but the only time that something has some value is if you're shocked at what happens at the end. I didn't plan that. Nobody's smart enough to plan this stuff. It only happens because it happens by accident. You get it wrong. And I think that's what Randall Jarrell was talking about. Here's the Jesse Ventura quote now. I don't know if you know who Jesse Ventura is. He was a professional wrestler, the governor of the state of Minnesota, and he said, win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. What? Yeah. What? Oh, no, lose if you must. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I'll just say, win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. Yeah, thank you.